This is a passage about television that I'm going to read today. I turned on the TV just to feel less deathly alone. Sally Jesse Raphael was hosting a debate between Christians and witches. A woman with white hair was trying to explain that she didn't, in fact, worship Satan. I'm sorry I'm not evil enough for you, Sally. The truth is that witches worship nature. Nature is a force. A bald man representing the Christians of America interrupted her. There are no morals in nature. An earthquake has no morals. You can't live in harmony with an erupting volcano. I don't want to go back to the jungle. Mankind has been trying to arise from the natural order. To which the witch responded, no, no, no. If there is no jungle, there is no air. You can go around in your concrete structures, but there will be no air. You stupid, stupid hippie, I muttered. She thought she could just go on TV and explain that she was a nice person and everyone would understand. But no one wanted to believe her. For some reason, they wanted to believe in Satan. They were the Satanists. I flipped through the channels, but it was like the entire world had checked into a mental institution. A violent fever dream of a commercial filled the screen. A giant anthropomorphic pitcher of Kool-Aid crashing through a cement wall like a wrecking ball before turning into a boombox playing loud atonal music to see-through people with Kool-Aid running through their veins like blood. Jesus, I said to no one. I snapped the TV off but still felt tense and afraid, as if the Kool-Aid man could come crashing through the wall at any moment and I'd die a blood-red Kool-Aid death. I pictured myself 6 months in the future, locked in a bunker, every creak and squeak the portent of a murderous intruder. I wanted the house to feel safe again. I wanted my mother. I imagined the sadness on her face as she knew my mind was collapsing into such a paranoid spiral. Fear is natural, I was sure she would say. Fear is good. Fear is the universe whispering in your ear. I want you to survive.
First of all, before we even get started, I want to tell you, this book fucking rocks. And I'm so sorry for my French, but it's incredible. And it's really good. Anyway.
Thank you, Krista.
But I just wanted to tell everyone and you, again, for the 5th or 6th time. Okay, so what inspired you to write this book?
If I can start the night off by being quite a bit strange, if you'll permit me. Okay, I see some nodding heads.
Like
okay,
it.
This is a safe space. So inspiration is an interesting issue for me because I never studied writing. I didn't even really study literature. I always studied dance, and so dance is I was a dancer. So dance is my main mode of expression, and so when I'm thinking about what I want to express, often the very first thing I feel is a movement. And I can do the movement for you.
I'd like to see
Would you
it.
want to see it?
Very much.
Okay, this is the movement for Rainbow Black. This is the move. And for me, when I sort of see that movement in my mind, what it represents to me is kind of like a violent journey towards freedom. And if it were a dance, that is the movement that I would do. And so in the book, I was always just in the back of my mind trying to translate this motion, this like physical movement into a novel.
I love that, and it's almost kind of like it also looks kind of like a bow, like Are You Not Entertained at the end.
Yes, exactly. Very much I have exposed myself, and I hope you enjoyed it.
So like when you were thinking about writing another book, this was the first thing that happened in your head?
Oh yeah, I can show you my move for my upcoming book if you want.
Yes,
I'm not going to tell you what it's about, but I can show you the
I would
move.
love to see it.
Okay, so this is a book that'll probably be in bookstores maybe 2026. All right, this is the move.
I'm gonna go crazy typing fingers. Okay, so this was your first. You've written 4 books now.
This is my 5th. Yes,
It's your 5th. Okay, so this is your first for adults. How was that different than your other experiences?
It was extremely different. My 4 previous books have all been young adult books, and I really feel like I was a young adult, and even into my 30s, I felt like a teenager, and I wrote from the perspective of a teenager. And Rainbow Black is about a teenager, but I think critically it's from the perspective of an adult and their memories of being a teenager. And I don't think I could have done that if I hadn't grown up myself. And sometimes when I say this, YA authors seem offended because it's as if I'm calling them immature, which I'm not. I really did need to grow up to write this book, but it's not that I think YA authors are immature. I think that YA authors are people who relate to being young and understand being young. And I used to be that, but I no longer am. I now relate to being old. And I don't think I can go back. So I don't think I will be writing YA again. I think I have grown up and crossed that boundary into oldness. And I'm happy to be here.
I feel like we're happy to have you.
Thank you.
Keep writing more books like this. I want to ask you a question that I already know the answer to. Who is your editor?
So, probably the most fun fact about Rainbow Black is that it was edited by the editor of Twilight. And I don't know if that makes sense to people once they hear that information. I have always been a huge Twihard, an unapologetic Twihard, and the editor's name is Jen, and I think I learned a lot from working with her because Twilight is everyone can agree, it's a very strange book. It takes the emotional situation very seriously of, what if you found out your boyfriend was a 112-year-old vampire, and he wanted to marry you, even though you're only 17 years old, but he also wants to kill you. And instead of just kind of being a stunt, Twilight takes that premise extremely seriously and takes you through the emotional reality of what that would be like. And working with Jen, it kind of helped me learn how to do that, because the book I wrote is a very bizarre situation. You know, what if your parents were accused of Satanism, and then you murdered someone and fled to another country and changed your identity? Like, it's a very surreal situation. But working with Jen, she taught me how to anchor really surreal situations in emotional reality, because the strangest things that happen to people, it's still just a person that it's happening to, and they're having to navigate all of those and negotiate all those emotions. So that's what I feel like she taught me to do.
Yeah, I love that. I love learning how to take something that sounds insane and taking it really seriously. And I also wonder, did you request to use an editor, or was this an assignment?
It was basically an assignment. The original draft of this, it was twice as long. And people already have complaints about how long the book was. The first draft was twice as long.
Who has complaints?
But so my agent knew there was going to be a ton of editing involved,
Okay.
and that it was going to be brutal. That I was going to have to cut the book literally in half. It was going to be violent.
Oh, God.
And he knew, you know, who will Maggie listen to? He's going to listen to the editor of Twilight. She'll do whatever she says.
Yeah.
And he was completely correct. I feel like I was like an apostle of Jen. And if she told me to cut it, I just cut it. No questions asked.
I love that. Ruthless.
It was ruthless.
What did the first draft look like when you got it back? Just.
Oh, I did the cutting myself.
Oh, you did. Oh.
Oh yeah. If you're gonna take an axe, someone's gonna take an axe to my baby. I'm gonna wield the axe myself.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Can you walk us through the process of like how this book became a book, like from the idea of the dance,
The
motion, to we're holding a book and here we are?
It was a very, very long process. This book took 14 years to complete. I started it essentially when I was still a child. I was 23, but I felt much younger, and the original draft of this was a young adult book. And it really feels like, in some ways, Rainbow Black is like my sibling. Like, we grew up together. Excuse me. And it just took that long for me to kind of rise to the occasion that I was presenting to myself. So really, it's just about growing up, and it's about to me, I see it as a story of ambition too. When I was 23 years old, it was truly absurd and laughable that I thought I could write this book, that I thought I was ready to write such a thing. And it took me 14 years to actually be ready to do it.
Nice. Okay.
So I always tell people, you know, I came back to this draft multiple times. So I always tell people, if you have a book that you think is dead or an art project that you think is dead, it very well may not be dead. It's just waiting for the right time. So I never throw anything away.
So you're like the opposite of the kill your darlings mentality.
Oh yeah, no. Cradle your darlings. Cradle them. Nurture them. Just wait for their time.
Oh. Let me see here. Do you have any particular rituals for how you write? Like, do you have like a little room that you go in, or do you drink a lot of coffee beforehand? Or I love to hear about rituals.
I write. I think a lot of people do. I think we're all very curious about like how other writers do it. How do you do it? And it's like as if some other writer is going to like have the secret.
Yeah, we just want to hear enough of them until we're like, that's it. That's the key.
Exactly. Yeah. My process is, I'm quite monk-like. I write in my bedroom. I drink a lot of tea. I often...
What kind?
Green.
Thank you.
Gunpowder. I often don't eat while I'm writing, so I truly enter like a monk-like state where I also sleep a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I could tell any writer, like, what do you need? You probably just need to sleep more. You need to feel revitalized so that you can work. But mostly I just try to keep my day as empty as possible. And I try to keep my life as empty as possible so that I have, because, you know, a book like this takes a lot of space.
Yeah. Did you plot points on like a big piece of paper? Like, this book has so many twists and turns that I don't understand how you did it. And I want you to tell me.
No, I don't plot anything. I'm very much... I know the broad strokes of what I'm doing, but that's usually about it. Anything more than that feels overwhelming.
So you kind of like find out as you're writing?
I find out as I'm writing.
Okay.
I feel like I just kind of let the characters go loose.
Okay.
And then deal with the consequences.
Okay. Here's my first question that I should have asked you, which is, why is the book called Rainbow Black?
I really like this question, though I refuse to answer. It's really, you know, that's been the title for 14 years, and I honestly don't remember how I came up with it, which is sort of fun. Like, I can't remember what the origin of that title was, but I think it was the right title, and I knew I wanted something that people could project onto, because I really like bringing the reader into the experience.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very, you might be shocked after reading this book, I'm very anti-authority. And so even my own authority as the author is something that I'm resistant to wield. Because I'm not going to tell you what the title means. I'm not going to tell you which character is good and which character is bad. I really want to leave it up to you, because it's a book about freedom. And that includes, for me, the freedom of the reader to think whatever they want.
Okay. Did the publisher fight you on the title? Did anybody try to help to get you to change it?
The only fight was, for 14 years, the title was Black Rainbow, and we switched it. We switched it to Rainbow Black, and it really felt like even that small little switch just clicked, and it was like, ooh, yeah, it's not Black Rainbow, it's Rainbow Black.
Nice. Okay. So this book really deals with the legal system, and how much legal research did you have to do?
In my particular case, I didn't have to do that much hands-on research because I am the daughter of 2 lawyers. So I feel like in many ways I was raised to be a lawyer. I was raised to have a litigious mind. And I should have been a lawyer, but unfortunately, through reasons that are unexplainable, I got an artistic temperament, and so I never could, and I have this authority problem. You can't be a lawyer if you can't deal with authority. Yeah, imagine like the judge, you know, ruling against you. I would just freak out and leap at him. I would lose it. I can't deal with those situations. But I have a very legalistic mind, and I love legal dramas. I've watched every legal drama that exists, and
Really?
Oh yeah.
What's your favorite?
Oh, Runaway Jury is a great one. There's a great one with Glenn Close where she played, of course they always, Glenn Close, she sleeps with her client, it's very juicy. It's basically any legal drama I will watch, so I'm extremely steeped in this, and I really love it. So the only real hands-on research I did was I read the court transcripts from the McMartin case, which is a very real legal case that occurred during the Satanic Panic, where some preschool teachers in California went through, I think their trial lasted 6 years and cost millions and millions of dollars. They eventually were acquitted, but by the time they were acquitted, their business was ruined, their lives were ruined, like it was over. So a lot of the legal procedure I based on those transcripts.
That's so interesting. Like, I was going to ask you, because I had never heard of the Satanic Panic, and can you tell us a little bit more about this? Because I assumed that you made it up, and then I Googled it once, and I was like, oh my God.
That's probably one of my favorite things about the Satanic Panic, and I wanted to write the book in such a way that if you didn't realize the Satanic Panic was real, it didn't matter, it would still ring true. But yeah, it was very real, and there was a pair of New Hampshire preschool teachers who went to jail for 19 years over allegations that were completely false. And I feel like as millennials, we didn't grow up hearing about the Satanic Panic. No. By the time I was a teenager in the year 2000, that whole history had been thrown away, kind of like garbage. Like the way it kind of happened, it was litigated on the most disposable edge of our culture. So tabloids, talk shows, the kind of things that we experience and then throw away. And my first exposure to it was when I was 15 years old in the year 2000. I asked my high school librarian if I could start a Dungeons and Dragons club. And she said, "No, we can't do that. Don't you know that game turns children into Satanists and they murder each other?"
Sorry?
And I was like, I had no clue what she was talking about. And it was just very weird that there was this vestige of the panic that was still alive. And the more I researched about it and learned about it, I just became really fascinated by the idea that there was this whole hysteria based on total fiction. But then many, many, many people in America never got the memo that it wasn't real. And their lives just went on. And to them, the Satanic Panic never ended. And I just found that really haunting. And I just kept thinking about it for years and years. And that's another way in which this book was born.
Wow.
But it's also like when I started writing this book in 2008, I really didn't think it was going to be relevant, because I thought no one's going to relate to or understand this hysteria. When this book comes out, people aren't going to get it. And then it's bad for society, but good for my book, that by the time it came out, most people understand completely, because we are in yet another era of conspiracies. An era in which, you can go to the grocery store and you can see people who seem completely normal on the outside, but they believe very bizarre conspiracies about, Hillary Clinton running a pedophile ring out of a pizza parlor. And it's like, we're doing it again.
Yeah.
And I think, because we throw this away rather than really dealing with it, we're kind of doomed for this to happen every 20 years. Mm-hmm. Which is great for my book, because every 20 years sales will go back up, because it'll be relevant again.
Yeah, we do tend to have these gigantic obsessions as a culture and then just completely forget about them.
And then it's like the next time it comes up, it's as if it's the first time.
Yeah, because no one remembers.
No one remembers. No one remembers. And I don't really know how we get out of this cycle, but it seems like we've been in it, since the 1700s,
Yeah.
Since the witch trials. Mm-hmm. It seems quite inescapable.
Yeah, and I feel like as a culture, Americans are particularly interested in whatever the big scandal case is.
The unique thing that America brings to culture is our obsession with punishment as entertainment. And really that it's not enough to just have a scapegoat. We also have to get hours and hours of entertainment out of it through our media. And it's kind of a sick thing that we do. And I'm not saying that I'm immune to it. I think the last kind of embarrassing thing I did, I was very into the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. I watched it like it was a soap opera. Like I watched it on television as if it was a show.
Well, it's packaged like a soap opera.
It was packaged like
just
a soap
like regular
opera.
TV.
And having watched 60 hours of that trial, I came away feeling like I knew less about the truth than someone who hadn't tuned in at all, because the court proceedings were so twisted that the pursuit of truth had become completely lost amid a circus of just entertainment.
Yeah.
Did you watch it?
Yeah. Did I watch it? Yeah. I've never heard anyone put punishment as entertainment, put it like that, and I love that and think that that's right.
It's creepy.
Yeah.
It's what we do best.
Yeah. Huh.
And so often, who's the person we're punishing? It's a gay person. So often, well, I so often, you know, we're still kind of litigating our Puritan horror of queer people.
Mm-hmm.
So often, that's who gets really hurt in these situations.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And you know, it's no coincidence that, in my mind, that Amber Heard is bisexual.
Definitely. Poor Amber.
I went in Team Johnny and came out Team Amber.
Good. Excellent. You've chosen the right side. Okay, I wanted to switch gears a little bit and ask you if there's any character that you feel like you truly identify the most with. And I think I know the answer, but I'm just going to let you go.
I'm curious if you do know the answer. I feel it is a lot to ask me to know myself, which I can't claim that I do. But to the extent that I do feel like I know myself, I think I'm a very bizarre combination of Lacey and Eclair, which is weird because they're sort of opposites in many ways. But there's a lot of me in Lacey / Joe. There's a lot of me in Eclair. Probably the least of me is in Gwen. I think she's the most mysterious character, probably, and she's the character I understand the least. And she's inspired by people in my life who I find very fascinating and very enriching, but who I don't understand.
I was going to guess maybe Lacey because, I mean, this is incredibly superficial, but in the book, Lacey really likes a fine cut suit. And I'm like, well.
I do love a suit. I do love a vintage tie.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too. In the book, Lacey is a lesbian and knows that she is basically when she figures it out as a child, and then never questions it really or deviates from it. But there is a, I don't want to call it uncomfortable. There is like a scene in this book where an older woman gets involved with Lacey. There's a situation, and how Lacey is hugely underage when this happens, and I'm interested in hearing how you approach that as an author.
Yeah, I think I really wanted Lacey to be a true innocent and someone who, even in the 80s, is someone who has not really had to deal with huge amounts of homophobia because her parents were hippies. And, you know, seeing what happens to that character when thrust into the kind of Maury Povich tabloids homophobia of the American media. And yeah, I think it is an uncomfortable situation with this older woman who's in a position of power, and I think it was a very sensitive thing to write. I wanted to approach it very sensitively. It was also important to me that not take over the book, because more people than we really want to confront experience sexual harassment, sexual assault, and it becomes, in effect, a fairly minor part of their biography, whereas usually when we highlight stories about sexual assault, it's like, well, we want to define the woman as having been assaulted, and that's all she is this woman who's been through this. And she's been through so much. Yeah. This is just a drop.
Tip of the iceberg for Lacey.
And I think, you know, a lot of people feel that way about their experiences with assault, where it's just one of many crazy things that happened to them, and there was no resolution. So I really went about it kind of from that point of view.
Yeah. I really like how, this is a trend I've noticed in the last like 10 years, I really like how Lacey is casually queer, and it's not a thing. Like, it's introduced, yeah, hey, and then we just move on instead of it being like this all-consuming, like, soul-searching situation. And I was making sure, I was like wanting to ask you if you did that on purpose, but of course you did.
Yeah, I did, and I'm of two minds about it, because I do think there's this incredible thirst for stories about queer characters who just are simply queer. And I do want to provide that, but at the same time I do feel like it's kind of false and it's kind of a wish fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we see in the book, we see Lacey's idyllic relationship with her own queerness kind of get destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And that is it's very hard to kind of keep maintaining this glass bubble around our innocence.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm kind of, you know, I think stories like that are really important, but I do think we kind of overestimate the degree to which those stories actually reflect the lived reality of queer people right now.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because when I read things where someone is casually queer, I go, oh, I love that.
Yeah, we
because
love it.
I
We
have
want
no
it.
experience with that being casual.
Yeah.
So it feels great to see it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Okay, so this is my last formal question for you, and it is about the ending of the book. By the end of this book, you have been on a ride, and the book ends in a way that seems to make Lacey finally feel okay. And I wanted to know if you, and it seems to do exactly what you needed to do as the reader too, and I wanted to know if you struggled with the ending of the book. Did you try to end it lots of different ways, or was that always the end?
No, that was always the end, and I always knew that there might be a significant group of readers who, and in case anyone hasn't read the book yet, I'm not going to get into spoilers or anything, but just vaguely I'll say there's going to be a group of readers who want her to get away with it, and getting away with it means, you know, no real hard consequences, and I knew that that was not what I wanted to do, because, you know, I think that we're living increasingly in this world where we see our political figures, our role models, get away with everything, get away with murder. There seems to be no justice. And I think it's very tempting to think, well, there's no justice for Donald Trump, so why should I be punished for the relatively minor thing that I did? And, you know, I really just don't believe in that. I really believe that it's good for our souls to atone for our mistakes and admit our mistakes rather than avoiding them. And I wanted to show a character who, even if you don't believe that she deserves her fate, she actually feels better about it, because she feels good about finally atoning. Atoning just feels good. Mm-hmm. It's not about whether we should have to do it or not, just because Donald Trump's getting away with murder. Mm-hmm. Like, we shouldn't murder. We should all, you know, it feels good to be good. It feels good to admit our mistakes, and that's what allows us to move on.
Wonderful. Love that. Okay. And I would
but
say
I do say that as someone who has, like, yeah, I say that as someone who has many secrets. Yeah,
Yeah,
I totally
wondered
agree.
if you struggled with that, because, like, both ways would have thrilled me.
I think in some ways Lacey is my fantasy of wishing that I could just announce the fullness of myself and just kind of get it over with, because it's like people are going to figure it out anyway, and then they'll punish me. I just want to get it out there. So that's kind of my fantasy.
No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so that's the end of my, like, very intense questions I wanted to ask you. Does anybody have any questions? We can open it up for a Q&A, and it's okay if you don't have questions, because I can keep going.
I was gonna say, since you wrote this over the course of many years, like, obviously time has changed a lot since you started. How did that impact, like, your writing, and did you use, like, your 2022, 2023 perspective into the book at all?
I think mostly what changed was the writing style. The original draft had a lot of like showing off, where I would just be like, I'm going to show off how grown up I am by like writing 4 paragraphs and just being that's sort of like immature desire to like, if it's really long, that means it's really serious. And growing up for me meant like, no, a book can be, it can have lots of drama, it can be exciting, and I do think mostly what I brought from like modern politics was just realizing that the internet has not created the utopia of knowledge that we all thought it was going to, and that a book about conspiracies and about how false information can ruin people's lives is really important, and kind of centering the book more around that, around an example of someone whose life is ruined by misinformation. That aspect became way more important to me in recent years. Thank you.
You said you're anti-authority in general. How do you kind of balance that with Lacey's atonement and like the way that she's interacting with the judicial system, which is undeniably an authority? So how can those kind of exist in parallel?
I think that's a really good question, and I think it's about acceptance. That, you know, in this book is just a massive therapy session because my father is a judge. So I've been rebelling against my father my entire life. And yet I love my father. I accept my father, he accepts me. We have arrived at a sort of mutual peace. But it's not a peace that came because he renounced his judgeship and said he was going to stop sending people to jail. It's really just that I accepted the system that he's part of. And you know, I accept that system put a roof over my head, paid for my college, that I've benefited from this system, and it's really that acceptance rather than change, I think, is what has helped me / Lacey. But thank you for that. I mean, that really is a major kind of conflict of the book, so I appreciate you pointing it out.
This isn't really Rainbow Black related, but I was just curious if you mentioned not doing young adult anymore, but do you think that will prevent you from making more graphic novels in the future, or?
That's a really good question, because I feel like my art style is very young adult, and it is going to be a struggle if I try to make a graphic novel, it's going to be a struggle for my art style to meet that adult content. If I do go back to young adult, it will be with graphic, because I feel like that's still an avenue that's open for me emotionally.
Anything else? How are we doing on time?
We're good. We can do a couple more if people have them.
Okay.
Or we can go sign some books.
Okay, what do you want to do? You want me to keep peppering you with questions?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Can you talk to me a little bit about the character of Gwen?
Yeah, Gwen is a bit of a cipher. Gwen is a bit of a mystery. I think Gwen, so single white female is a big motif. Can I see it? Has anyone seen Single White Female?
Hello.
Oh my gosh, okay, lots of people have seen Single White Female, awesome. I really am fascinated by that movie. And for those who haven't seen it, it's about Bridget Fonda, who's also a big motif in the book, puts out an ad for a roommate. And then and this movie, this is 1994, this is the heyday of like erotic thrillers. It's really good. And the roommate slowly starts wearing all her clothes, gets the same haircut, kind of tries to flirt with her boyfriend, and increasingly it feels like she's taking over her life. And it's this sort of like, oh God, this girl's taking my identity.
Is gaslighting you the whole time.
And gaslighting you the whole time. And it's presented as this real nightmare scenario that this would happen to you. And I find that movie really fascinating as like a heterosexual nightmare. Whereas like, as you know, in the gay community, identity is much soupier and messier. You have like the phenomenon of like doppelbangers or boyfriend twins, like a couple that looks alike, and it's not considered sinister. It's not, you don't feel like one of them is gonna kill the other one. And so
That's actually never crossed my mind.
exactly in the queer community, we kind of embrace this sort of like identity melding a lot more. Sometimes. And so I wanted, you know, with Gwen, I have Lacey's mom, you know, says this fairly controversial thing of like, what if Gwen changed her identity just to become a lesbian, just to be with you? And of course, from the mom's point of view, that's this nightmare. But I wanted to present it as, we'll never know, because Gwen is a mystery, and B, even if that is so, why do we have to view that as such a nightmare? Why can't we view it as an incredibly ultimate romantic act where your identity is less important than the person you love and their needs, and you'll do anything. It doesn't have to be creepy.
Yeah, I like that in the book you never actually answered that. Whether
Yeah, and I never will. I love
it. Yeah.
Again, with the don't look to me as an authority figure for the book. Like you gotta make up your own minds about that.
I have a friend who's this is bad, but her favorite pickup line is "You look like me, and that's what I like about you."
Oh yeah, with the, you know, the classic lesbian dilemma: do I want to date Kristen Stewart or be Kristen Stewart? You know, and you don't have to know. You don't have to pick a side.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. Do you feel like you left anything unsaid in the book?
No.
No, you just laid it all out.
Yeah.
Does that feel awesome?
Yeah, it does feel good. It is the first book I've ever written where I actually felt satisfied at the end, and I felt like I could be murdered tomorrow and I would feel basically fine.
Yeah.
I still have more to write. I still have more to express, but if I die tomorrow, it's okay.
You did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad for you. I love that. That's such a good feeling to know that you did your absolute best. I'm very happy for you.
Thank you, Krista.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, another question back
I have
here.
another question. Do you check your Goodreads reviews?
No, I have my mom checks them, and my mom sends me really juicy ones. And, no, I don't go near it. It'll ruin my day.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to become incredibly entitled, and even if you're getting good reviews, all of a sudden it's like, well, there's not enough of them. The number isn't high enough, and no matter what, there's absolutely no way to be happy by visiting Goodreads. It's just don't do it. Don't take crack. Don't go to Goodreads. Just don't.
You could have 50 good ones, and then one will be like,
Yeah. And it ruins your day.
Yeah.
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 And it's also, I try to avoid reviews as in general, because it's very kind of surreal and weird to have your own writing explained to you, and it makes me sound really smart, and it makes me like, oh, I did do that really well, even though what the reviewer is commenting on was basically kind of an accident that this all worked out, but they think I did it very intentionally. And
yeah,
then
it's a metaphor. I did it on purpose.
Exactly, yeah, and it's like really it just kind of came together that way, and then I become sort of paralyzed and can't write anymore.
Yeah,
I can't write with the reviewer in my head.
That's smart. Stay away from that. Yeah. Okay.
Do you go to Goodreads?
God, no.
Yeah, it's scary.
Absolutely
It's
not.
scary. But your Goodreads is so tender. Your book.
I've never looked.
Oh, everyone, please pick up Moby Dyke, please. And the Goodreads, you're fine. You don't have anything to be scared of. You don't have anything to be scared of. It's a delightful book, and everyone agrees.
That's true.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Do you guys want to do some signing with Maggie now?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Krista. And thank you, everyone, for seeing my dance moves.
Highlight.